I was born and raised here. Let's kind of go back and give a little bit of my history here. I lived in this house until I was 3. My parents lived upstairs, and my grandparents lived downstairs. And my grandparents got to live here because my great uncle, my grandmother's brother, inherited this piece of property from his father. So my great grandfather bought the Forks, and he owned at one time about 1,200 acres. So I grew up a really, when you grow up around something, sometimes you take it for granted. I grew up on 1,200 acres that I could roam at will between these two creeks. And I thought it was like a private kingdom, And it was. For a kid growing up out here, all these houses weren't here, and we just lived out in the country. And everybody thought we lived way out in the country, which is, we're only about 5 miles from downtown, what used to be called North Florence. So I grew up here and had the privilege of living in this house. What you're sitting on, if you'll look behind me, the reason it's called the Forks of Cypress is because Big Cypress Creek is over on your right, and Little Cypress is on your left, and they literally fork together in this wooded tree line to form Cypress. So what you cross on Cox Creek is Cypress Creek after the two creeks merge. And then it empties into the Tennessee River there just about McFarland. A little bit about the house itself, and then I'll answer questions. You're sitting at the front, and the reason you know you're at the front, when you get up and look back, you'll notice how really nice and finished the front is. Whereas the other side is finished with rubble, and it's not as high off the ground. The steps reveal the architect. The plans of this house did not survive. There is a set of plans that you can go online and look up through the National Archives, but they were done by the PWA or WPA during the 30s. And you can even access the photographs of the interior of the house that were taken at that time. And there are a lot of other houses around here that were photographed too and designed or drawn. But William Nichols left 2 or 3 of his trademarks. Right here at the foot of the steps, there is a curl. Only one survives. There was one on this side. We don't know what happened to it. This is his signature. As far as we know, it's the first one he designed like this. The columns have limestone bases. Probably had to have been turned in Nashville or a place that probably didn't have the technology or the equipment here to do it. But the brick were made on the plantation, and they are pie-shaped. They're wedge-shaped, so that you get this round effect. And you'll notice the columns have good symmetry. They go up and then they start to narrow. For years it was thought, because they were covered in plaster, that they might be wooden. And the fire has revealed them to be exactly what everybody thought. Most of us thought they were brick. They are not hollow. They are filled with cement or mortar. And then when the men came and repointed them, anything that was damaged was fixed, and they were refilled to keep the water out. They were covered with a plaster of horsehair, molasses, sand, gravel, and cement, or a limestone mortar mix. And that stayed for years. In fact, on this outside where the fire was not as hot, you can still see remnants of the mortar. So it stayed on there, and probably would, if the house was still standing, would be still on there. The house was hit by lightning in this corner on the morning of June 6, 1966. And I had been here. My mother was the curator, and it was open for tourists. I had been here about 30 minutes prior to that storm, checked the house, fed the animals in the barn, and then went home and took a shower. And after I got out of the shower, we heard the lightning hit. We knew it hit something. When we got here, the entire house was engulfed, because it went through the wiring of the entire house. This house, at the time, we think was finished about 1822, so it would be 144 years old, and it went up like a tinderbox. It probably burnt to the ground, and it burnt, literally caved in less than 30 minutes. I remember as a child, you could go anywhere on this porch and get a breeze. It was, no matter where you went, there was a breeze blowing somewhere on this hill, so he picked a good spot. The land this house was built on was owned once by the Cherokee chief Doublehead. Doublehead had a special arrangement with the U.S. government. When he quit going on the warpath, They gave him his own private reservation. His reservation came from Elk River, which is Lauderdale, Limestone County, the county line, all the way to Cypress Creek, 10 miles inland from the river. So he owned this strip, all from Elk to Cypress Creek, 10 miles from the river north. So for a long, long time, it was believed that Doublehead lived on this site. Probably not. Doublehead lived at Blue Water. But it's probably a fact that he knew a great deal about the site. But it is a beautiful spot.